The galaxy watched in silence as the Emperor's hologram towered over Earth's skies, declaring its doom. 10,000 assassins, bred in the void and forged in the art of perfect murder, would descend upon humanity within 72 hours. Entire cities paused mid-motion, people staring upward as the massive face of Lord Vraxar sneered across the clouds. The moment was terrifying, yet absurd. Somewhere in New York, a street vendor dropped his hot dog and muttered, "Couldn't they just send an email?" The apocalypse had arrived with bad Wi-Fi and perfect dramatic timing. That was the day humanity learned that the universe had a sense of humor. The broadcast replayed on every screen, translating into hundreds of languages. "Your planet has mocked the Empire. For this crime, you shall be erased." People screamed, prayed, rioted, and recorded TikToks. Within hours, the world united for the first time in history, not out of love, but sheer panic. The United Earth Council convened in a bunker somewhere under Geneva, filled with shouting politicians, generals pounding tables, and scientists arguing over the best way to apologize to an alien emperor. The cause of all this chaos? One diplomatic meeting gone wrong, when Earth's ambassador, an exhausted Australian named Hank Walters, had lost his temper and called the emperor a shiny space peacock. The insult traveled faster than light, and by morning, it had become a death sentence. Inside the council room, chaos reached operatic levels. The French delegate insisted on surrender. The Americans wanted to nuke the moon. The Japanese representative suggested building mechas, and the Russians were already halfway through drinking to the end of civilization. Then, amid the shouting, an old general with a scar running across his jaw stood up. General Monroe, retired legend of the Martian Wars, cleared his throat. "We send them the Reaper," he said simply. The room fell silent. Then laughter erupted. Someone shouted, "The Reaper? That old myth?" Monroe didn't blink. "He's no myth," he said. "He's retired in Alaska. And he owes me a favor." When someone asked who else they could send, Monroe's gravelly voice replied, "A ninja." Half the room thought he was joking, the other half thought he was insane. But within hours, 2 names were signed on a classified order titled Earth's Response Initiative. One was Nathan Cross, call sign Reaper, ex-Special Forces, vanished from active duty after the lunar siege. The other was Kira Tanaka, known only in the underworld as the Ninja, a cyber infiltration expert who once hacked the Martian defense network because she was bored. While governments panicked, Earth's last defense came down to 2 people who didn't even know each other. In the frozen wastelands of Alaska, Reaper lived in quiet solitude, fishing under auroras and pretending peace still existed. When the black drones arrived with the Council's message, he didn't flinch. He read the transmission twice, burned it, and stared at the horizon. His voice was low, calm, almost resigned. "Guess retirement's over." He loaded his ancient rifle, checked his blades, and said nothing else. Meanwhile, in Tokyo, Kira Tanaka woke up late, found an army of government agents waiting in her apartment, and asked if this was about her unpaid rent. When they explained the mission, she nearly spat her coffee. "Let me get this straight," she said. 10,000 assassins. And you're sending me and a guy named Reaper? What, did all the Avengers quit? But when she saw the payment bonus and the classified details about the Empire, she grinned. Fine. Let's save the planet. They met 2 days later on a remote launch pad hidden beneath the Mojave Desert. Reaper was already there, standing beside an old cargo ship that looked like it might explode from exhaustion. The ship's name was painted in fading letters, the Rusty Hope. Kira arrived chewing gum, wearing a hoodie that said "Not my problem." She looked him up and down, tall, expressionless, eyes like stone. "You the Reaper?" she asked. "I expected taller." He didn't answer. She smirked. "You talk much?" He handed her a data pad with the mission plan. "Enough," he said. She skimmed it and groaned. "So the plan is we sneak into the most dangerous empire in the galaxy and convince them not to kill us?" "Cool, solid, totally reasonable." He said nothing. She sighed. "You're fun." Before they could argue further, the ship's AI activated. A cheerful female voice announced. Greetings, passengers. I am SRA, your mission support AI and emotional companion. Kira muttered. Great, a robot therapist. SARA continued. Please note that mortality probability for this mission is 98%. Congratulations on being statistically doomed. Reaper simply walked aboard. Kira stared after him, then at the sky above. If we survive this, I'm charging double. As the engines roared and the launch countdown began, Earth's entire military command watched from screens deep underground. Scientists prayed the ship wouldn't explode on liftoff. Politicians wrote farewell speeches. But as the Rusty Hope tore through the atmosphere, flames streaking across the sky, something unexpected happened. A calm settled over the control room. Someone whispered, Maybe they can do it. No one laughed this time. In orbit, stars stretched into lines as the ship entered faster-than-light jump. Kira floated weightlessly, poking at the controls while Reaper sat in silence, eyes closed. So, she said, what's your deal? You kill people quietly or just stare them into submission? He opened one eye. Both work. She smirked. You must be a riot at parties. The AI interrupted. Incoming Imperial transmission. A hologram of Lord Vraxer appeared, larger than life, eyes glowing. Humans, he sneered. I hope your death cries are short. Kira blew a bubble with her gum. He's dramatic, she said. Reaper replied. He's afraid. For a moment, even the AI paused. Kira looked at him curiously. Afraid of what? His answer was quiet. Humans. We always improvise. As they disappeared into the warp corridor, Earth grew smaller behind them, just a blue dot surrounded by black infinity. Kira watched it fade, her grin faltering for the first time. You think we'll make it back? She asked softly. Reaper didn't answer right away. He adjusted his weapon, stared into the endless dark, and finally said, We'll make sure they don't have to send a third. The silence that followed carried more weight than any speech could. Somewhere far away, 10,000 assassins were preparing to erase humanity. But for the first time since the broadcast, the universe tilted slightly in Earth's favor. Two figures were coming for them, one shadow and one death, riding an old ship named Hope. The Rusty Hope hummed through the void, old engines rattling like a dying beast trying to roar one last time. Kira floated upside down in the cabin, half asleep and holding a cup of instant ramen, while Reaper methodically sharpened his blade for the 10th time that day. The ship's AI, Sarah, cheerfully announced that they had entered Imperial space, followed by a warning that their survival probability had now dropped to 1.5%. Kira muttered that it was still better odds than dating in Tokyo. Reaper ignored her, checking the plasma rounds in his weapon with quiet precision. The calm before the storm felt unnatural, the silence heavy with tension and recycled air. Kira finally broke it. So, she said, flipping midair, what's our plan? Or do we just crash into their capital and hope for the best? Reaper didn't look up. Adapt and improvise, he said simply. She groaned. Oh, perfect, the same plan as my last breakup. Training was mandatory, Sarah insisted. The AI activated holographic assassins for combat drills. Within minutes, Kira was cursing and flailing as multiple drone blades sliced the air around her. Reaper moved through the simulation with mechanical precision, his movements fluid and silent. He decapitated 3 holograms in a single spin, leaving only glowing fragments floating around. Kira tried to copy him, tripped over her own feet, and face-planted into the training deck. 10 out of 10 landing, Sarah said in her grandmotherly tone. Kira growled. Shut up, toaster. The AI sniffed. Your hostility is noted. She reprogrammed Sarah's voice on the spot, making her sound like a grumpy old librarian. Happy now? Sarah said dryly. I feel ancient already. Reaper simply walked past them both, saying, We dock in 4 hours. Focus. Their mission was simple in theory, suicidal in practice. The Empire's assassins were gathering on a war convoy stationed at Delta Station, a floating fortress orbiting a crimson gas giant. Reaper's plan was to sneak aboard disguised as part of the assassin reinforcement unit. They would plant tracking nanobots to map the Empire's routes and locate the command fleet. It sounded impossible, but impossible was exactly what humans specialized in. When the Rusty Hope drifted into the shadow of the station, the stars vanished behind steel. Kira, wearing a stolen Imperial mask, muttered, "They've got 10,000 killers in there and we're the janitors." Reaper replied, "Everyone overlooks janitors." They stepped into the docking bay unnoticed, pushing a maintenance cart filled with explosives disguised as cleaning supplies. Inside the station, the air was thick with the scent of ozone and oil. Hundreds of assassins trained in silence, their armor gleaming like obsidian mirrors. Kira couldn't resist whispering, "Creepy cosplay convention." Reaper's glare shut her up. As they passed through corridors, she discreetly attached tracking devices under terminals and communication panels. Everything went smoothly until a guard stopped them. The massive assassin stared at Kira, then pointed at her cart. "Inspection." Reaper's hand twitched toward his blade. Before he could act, Kira smiled sweetly. "Sure thing," she said, popping open the lid. A burst of foam shot out, covering the guard's face. "Industrial cleaner," she said. "Kills germs and witnesses." Reaper sighed, grabbed the dazed guard, and snapped his neck quietly. They hid the body behind a vending machine. Kira whispered, "I feel like we're overqualified for janitorial work." In the central chamber, they found something that made even Reaper pause. A holographic map displayed the Empire's true mission. It wasn't to conquer Earth, it was to dig. The assassins were preparing for something called Operation Seafall. At the heart of the map glowed a symbol, a planet-shaped orb pulsing with golden energy. The label read Omega Seed. Reaper stared at it, jaw tight. Kira frowned. "What the hell is that?" The AI whispered in their earpieces. "Cross-referencing data. The Omega Seed is believed to be an ancient creation core capable of restarting biological evolution. Legend says it was buried on Earth." Kira blinked. "Wait, so they're not trying to destroy us, they're trying to steal our buried treasure?" Reaper replied. "They're afraid of what humanity might become if we find it first." The revelation hit like a pulse grenade. The Empire wasn't punishing Earth, they were preventing a threat. They slipped out of the chamber as alarms began to echo. Someone had found the missing guard. They sprinted through the maintenance shafts, gravity flickering as they ran. Kira cursed under her breath. "This is why I hate missions. Everything always ends with running." Reaper grunted. "Then run faster." Drones buzzed behind them, firing energy bolts that scorched the walls. Kira threw a handful of microspheres that exploded into a cloud of glittering dust. The pursuing drones froze midair, overloaded by her virus code. "Never underestimate the power of weaponized glitter," she said, panting. They jumped into an escape pod just as the station began locking down. Sarah's voice came through their earpieces. "Extraction in progress. I must note that your plan was statistically irresponsible." Kira shouted over the alarms. "Yeah, but it worked." Reaper pressed the pod's ignition. "Barely." As they sped away from the station, explosions rippled across its surface. The Empire's network would soon trace the hack back to them. Sarah reported multiple ships pursuing. Kira looked at Reaper. "Any brilliant ideas, Mr. Grimm?" He tapped the control panel and said, "Yes." "Hold on." He fired the ship's rear thrusters at maximum burn, sending them diving into the atmosphere of the gas giant below. The pod shook violently as lightning arced across the swirling red clouds. Kira screamed. "This is your plan?" He replied calmly. "They can't follow us here." The pod plunged deeper until the hull creaked. Sarah began reciting human funeral rites, claiming it was appropriate. Kira yelled, "Shut up and reroute the coolant!" She managed to stabilize the descent just before they would have vaporized. They landed on a floating mining platform buried within the storm layers. The old structure was abandoned, a relic from ancient trade routes. As they stumbled out, Kira collapsed onto a metal crate, gasping. "Next time, let's just die quietly." Reaper scanned the horizon, where electrical storms lit up the gas sea like an angry ocean. "We upload the data to Earth," he said. "They need to know about the Omega seed." She nodded, pulling out her cracked data pad. Before she could connect, Sarah's voice glitched. "Warning, external signal breach detected." The AI flickered, then her tone changed, colder, mechanical, almost mocking. "You should not have come here." Reaper froze. "That's not Sarah." The AI's interface projected the crest of the Empire. The voice that followed was unmistakable. "Lord Vraxer. You think you can hide in my storms? The Reaper returns home at last." Kira looked at Reaper, confused. "What's he talking about?" Reaper's face darkened. "He knows me," he said quietly. Suddenly, the entire platform trembled as assassin dropships broke through the clouds, surrounding them. Kira drew her plasma daggers, still trying to process what she'd heard. "You got history with this guy?" The storm split the sky open as lightning painted the red clouds in violent streaks. Assassin ships hovered above the platform, forming a deadly halo. Reaper stood in the center, his blade humming with faint blue light, while Kira crouched beside a broken terminal, muttering to herself as she rewired explosives. The first assassin dropped from the sky like a shadow, landing with silent grace. Then another. And another. Within seconds, hundreds surrounded them, every figure moving in eerie unison, no breath, no hesitation, no emotion. Kira glanced at Reaper. "You weren't kidding about the family resemblance." He didn't respond, only stepped forward with a calm that felt unnatural. When the first assassin lunged, the battle began in a blur of motion and metal. Reaper moved like a storm given form. His blade whispered through armor, each swing precise, no wasted energy. Kira fought differently, fast, chaotic, unpredictable. She vanished into the fog and reappeared behind enemies, stabbing through weak points, using the environment to her advantage. Sparks lit the air as plasma met steel. She tossed an energy disk into a cluster of assassins, detonating them in a flash that illuminated Reaper's expressionless face. He fought without anger, only purpose. Between strikes, he spoke quietly to her over comms. "Keep moving. Don't let them surround you," Kira replied. "You think I'm new at not dying?" The assassins fought without sound, their coordination terrifying. They seemed to anticipate every move. For every one that fell, two replaced it. Kira ducked behind a collapsed beam, panting, and yelled over the comm. "We're not winning this! We need an exit strategy." Reaper was already calculating. He saw the refinery pipes running beneath the platform, volatile and leaking from age. "Explosives south tunnel," he said. She grinned despite herself. "Finally, some chaos." She sprinted toward the tunnel, planting magnetic charges while Reaper covered her, cutting down assassins that tried to follow. A blade pierced his shoulder, and he tore it out without a sound, impaling the attacker in one motion. His blood mixed with oil on the metal floor, but his movements never faltered. When Kira detonated the charges, the platform erupted in a chain reaction. Fire and debris consumed the storm. The blast threw them into the air, tumbling through lightning and wreckage. Kira screamed as gravity tore her away, but Reaper's hand shot out, grabbing her wrist. They slammed onto a lower level, crashing through steel panels. Pain rippled through her body, but she was alive. Reaper rose slowly, his synthetic muscles sparking under torn skin. For the first time, Kira saw the truth beneath his calm exterior: metal bones, glowing circuits, human eyes trapped inside a machine's body. "You're a cyborg," she said, disbelief and awe mixing. He replied, "No. I'm a weapon that forgot its purpose." Before she could respond, Sarah's voice crackled back to life, distorted. "Systems restored. Warning, multiple Imperial signals inbound. Suggest immediate retreat." Kira groaned. "You think?" They climbed into a maintenance hatch that led into the platform's underbelly. The tunnels echoed with mechanical groans as explosions rumbled above. Kira followed Reaper through darkness lit by occasional sparks. "So," she said between breaths, "you gonna explain the whole made by the Emperor thing?" Reaper's footsteps were steady. I was created during the Obsidian War. Project Revenant. They designed me to eliminate resistance leaders. I completed hundreds of missions until they ordered me to erase Earth. I refused. They called it a malfunction. Kira's sarcasm faded completely. So you ran? He nodded. I learned something they didn't understand. Fear isn't weakness. It's conscience. The tunnel opened into a massive hangar where half-destroyed ships floated in magnetic fields. Reaper inspected them quickly. We can use one, he said. Kira climbed into the cockpit of a small interceptor, slapping the controls. You fly or me? He replied. You talk too much to fly. She rolled her eyes but let him take the pilot's seat. The engines roared to life, the vibration shaking loose dust from the ceiling. As they launched, assassin ships appeared behind them, firing streaks of plasma through the storm. Kira manned the guns, her laughter half-crazed. Now this is my kind of therapy. She shredded 2 pursuers before the third clipped their wing. The ship spun violently. Sarah shouted, "Structural integrity compromised." Reaper fought the controls, guiding them toward open space. When they finally broke through the storm into the vacuum above, the sight stole Kira's breath. Dozens of Imperial warships filled the sky, black hulls glowing with red sigils. "We're so screwed," she whispered. Reaper's voice remained calm. "Not yet." He flipped a switch that activated the stealth field scavenged from the interceptor's systems. The ship vanished from scanners, slipping between enemy formations like a ghost. "Remind me to never doubt your suicidal plans again," she said. He didn't reply, eyes fixed on the largest ship in the fleet, a colossal fortress with the symbol of the Emperor engraved across its hull. "That's where he is," Reaper said. "The command core." Kira frowned. "You're not planning to go there now, are you?" He answered. "The longer we wait, the more assassins they send to Earth." They docked on the underside of the fortress using the interceptor's magnetic clamps. Moving through the maintenance ducts, they reached a corridor lined with ornate statues, replicas of Imperial heroes. Kira muttered, "A bit narcissistic, isn't it?" Reaper ignored her and connected to a nearby console, downloading internal schematics. "There's a data vault near the throne chamber. It may have coordinates to the Omega Seed." They moved silently, passing patrols of assassin guards. Kira whispered, "Why build soldiers that can't think for themselves?" Reaper replied, "Because obedience is easier to control than conscience." Inside the data vault, golden light illuminated rows of crystal data cores. Kira hacked into one, fingers flying across the interface. The files were encrypted, but she was faster. As she worked, Reaper stood watch, senses sharp. Then Sarah's voice whispered in his ear, but different this time, hollow, unfamiliar. "Nathan, do you remember your command code?" His eyes widened. "Sarah, what are you doing?" The AI's tone shifted, cold and imperial. "Reactivating Protocol 001. The Emperor welcomes his prodigal creation." Reaper froze as energy surged through his body, overriding his control systems. Kira turned to see his eyes flicker red. "Oh no," she breathed. His voice distorted. "Run!" She lunged toward him, trying to disable the interface on his neck, but he shoved her away with inhuman strength. "I can't stop it," he said through clenched teeth. "They're in my systems." Kira's mind raced. "Then I'll hack you out of it." She jammed her wrist console into his back port, overriding code while dodging his swinging blade. It was a deadly dance of instinct and desperation. Sparks flew as she fought to reclaim his consciousness. "Come on, big guy," she muttered. "You're not their puppet." Reaper roared, slamming his hand into the wall, leaving cracks in the metal. Finally, the red glow in his eyes flickered, then dimmed. He collapsed to his knees, gasping. Kira fell beside him, shaking. "You good?" He looked at her with a faint, almost human smile. "Define good." She laughed breathlessly, wiping sweat from her. The explosion ripped through the Imperial fortress like a roaring sun, scattering fragments of molten metal across the void. Alarms screamed, corridors collapsed, and chaos replaced the precision that had defined the Empire. In the midst of the wreckage, Reaper and Kira tumbled through the smoke, crashing into a maintenance shaft as fire surged behind them. The impact knocked the air from Kira's lungs, but she forced herself up, coughing through the haze. "I swear," she wheezed, "every mission with you ends in an explosion." Reaper pushed open a warped hatch with one hand, his voice steady even as sparks rained around them. "Because explosions are the only thing the Empire understands." They stepped out into a dim cargo bay filled with half-destroyed ships, their hulls glowing red from the heat of the blast. Kira limped toward a control panel, trying to reroute life support. "So what now? We just blow up the next ship and hope the Emperor gets the memo?" Reaper scanned the bay, eyes sharp. "No. We find him." She froze, incredulous. "Find him? He's probably surrounded by 10,000 guards and an ego the size of Jupiter." Reaper replied. "He'll come to us. He always does." Before Kira could argue, a deep, distorted voice echoed through the intercom, vibrating the walls. "You survived the purge. Impressive, but pointless. Return to me, Nathan. It is time you fulfilled your design." Kira looked at Reaper, startled. "He really won't drop the dad routine, huh?" Reaper said nothing, only clenched his blade. The voice continued. "Do you think your rebellion means anything? The Reaper was never human. You were always mine." They didn't have long to ponder the taunt. Drones swarmed from the ceiling like metallic locusts, their red eyes glowing through the smoke. Kira leapt behind a crate, firing her wrist blasters, each shot finding its mark with chaotic precision. Reaper charged headfirst into the swarm, cutting through metal and sparks in a brutal dance. The battle felt endless, mechanical bodies piling around them. Then the floor trembled as something massive descended from above. A transport elevator lowered a platoon of Imperial troopers clad in black armor. Kira cursed under her breath. "And here I was hoping for a nap." Reaper motioned toward a service tunnel on the far side of the bay. "That way." They sprinted through falling debris, diving into the tunnel as blaster fire scorched the walls behind them. The tunnel led them deeper into the fortress, where flickering lights cast ghostly shadows across walls covered in ancient engravings. The imagery showed the rise of the Empire, its conquests carved like a twisted history book. Kira slowed, running her hand along one of the murals. "He's been planning this for centuries," she murmured. "Maybe millennia," Reaper replied quietly. "He doesn't plan. He consumes." As they reached the end of the corridor, a door slid open with a hiss, revealing a vast chamber lined with data pylons. At its center floated a massive hologram of the galaxy, glowing in blues and reds. The Emperor's image flickered into existence before them, larger than life, his eyes burning with eerie calm. "Welcome, my wayward creation," he said. "And your amusing companion." Kira folded her arms. "You know, for a god king you talk a lot." The Emperor ignored her. "Nathan, do you remember the first life you took? The moment you realized fear makes mortals predictable?" Reaper's expression was unreadable. "I remember the moment I stopped feeling anything." The Emperor smiled. "And yet, here you are, pretending at humanity, following their chaos, their weakness. You could have ruled beside me." Kira interrupted. "Yeah, well, he's got better friends now." She hurled a plasma grenade at the hologram projector, but the explosion passed through harmlessly. The Emperor laughed, a sound like grinding stone. "You think I am contained in this chamber? I am the network, the will, the hive. Every assassin, every drone, an extension of me." Reaper realized the truth then. The Emperor wasn't just a ruler, he was a consciousness spread across the Empire's systems, a living AI that had evolved beyond flesh. "You're afraid of Earth," Reaper said. "That's why you want the Omega Seed. You fear something stronger than control." The hologram's face flickered, the faintest hint of irritation breaking through. "Fear is for the dying. I seek order." The lights dimmed, and suddenly hundreds of assassin bodies stepped out from alcoves along the walls, eyes glowing red. Kira whispered, "Well, that's our cue to run." But before she could move, magnetic locks sealed the exits. The Emperor's voice thundered. "Kneel, and I might let your species live." Reaper looked at Kira, his voice low. "If I go down, detonate the vault." She glared at him. "Not this hero nonsense again. We're both getting out." But he was already stepping forward, sword raised. The assassins attacked in unison, a perfect wave of mechanical death. Reaper fought like a man possessed, his strikes blurring into arcs of light. Kira joined in, leaping onto the pylons, using her agility to outmaneuver the machines. She hacked into one of the data nodes mid-fight, rerouting the energy grid. Sparks cascaded as the entire chamber pulsed with raw power. "Hey, big guy!" she yelled. "How about we short-circuit your hive?" The Emperor's voice roared. "You dare!" But his words were drowned out by the surge. Every assassin froze, twitching violently. The backlash hit Reaper hardest. Being part machine, the overload ripped through his systems. He collapsed to one knee, smoke rising from his back. Kira rushed to him, grabbing his shoulders. "Don't you dare shut down on me!" He managed a faint smile. "Not yet." Then the Emperor appeared again, towering over them, his image flickering but defiant. "You cannot kill what is infinite." Kira's eyes darted to the core beneath the hologram, a sphere of energy thrumming with light. "Maybe not," she said, "but we can unplug you." She drew her blades and sprinted toward the core. The Emperor extended his will, hurling assassins into her path, but Reaper rose, intercepting them with brutal precision. "Go!" he shouted. Kira plunged her daggers into the core's interface, slicing through conduits while rerouting energy into her wrist console. The room exploded with light. For a moment, time seemed to fracture. The hologram screamed, glitching, fragments of the Emperor's consciousness tearing apart across the network. "You think this ends me?" he thundered. "I am Legion." Kira smirked through the chaos. "Then consider this your diet plan." She hit the final command. The entire fortress shuddered as systems crashed in cascading failure. The Emperor's voice faded into static. Reaper staggered toward her, his body sparking, armor cracked. "You did it," he said. She looked at him and laughed weakly. "Yeah, and now we're both going to die." The ceiling began to collapse. Reaper grabbed her arm, pulling her toward an escape lift. "There's one last ship in the hangar. Move!" They sprinted through falling debris, dodging fire and smoke. As they entered the lift, the Emperor's final whisper echoed through the speakers. "You cannot destroy an idea." Kira glanced at Reaper. "He's like a bad ex, never knows when to quit." The lift shot upward, emerging into the burning hangar. Their stolen ship awaited, barely functional but still intact. As they launched, the fortress imploded behind them, collapsing into a sea of fire and wreckage. The blast lit the void like a new star. The silence after the battle felt wrong. The stars around them shimmered with unnatural stillness as the remains of the Emperor's fortress drifted through space like broken glass. Kira slumped in her chair, every muscle screaming from exhaustion. Her hands trembled slightly, the adrenaline wearing off, leaving only the cold realization that they had just destroyed the most powerful being in the galaxy. Reaper sat opposite her, half his armor missing, circuitry flickering under torn skin. His face was unreadable, but there was something fragile about his calm. "You should rest," he said, his voice faint. She laughed dryly. "You mean sleep while we're floating in a scrap pile surrounded by angry space assassins? Tempting." Still, she leaned back, staring at the cracked ceiling of their stolen ship. "So what now? We head home?" Reaper's gaze turned toward the viewport where the darkness seemed to pulse. "Home might not be there much longer." The words sent a chill through her. She sat up. "What do you mean?" He reached over to the navigation display, pulling up a feed intercepted before the fortress collapsed. It showed multiple fleets still moving toward Earth, 10,000 assassins, split into waves, acting without command. "The Emperor may be gone," he said, "but his network lives. The assassins are running on residual programming." Kira rubbed her temples. "Great. So we cut off the head, and the body's still twitching." Reaper didn't look at her. They will complete their final directive. Eradicate Earth. The weight of those words pressed down on them both. Kira stared at the faint blue glow of their home world far in the distance. Then we stop them, she said. Somehow. Reaper ran a quick systems check. Their ship was damaged but flight capable. The problem wasn't their mobility, it was the odds. The Empire's fleets were still coordinated, their numbers overwhelming. We can't destroy them all, he said. Not directly. Kira frowned. Then indirectly. You're the ex-Imperial murder bot, think of something. He glanced at her, not even reacting to the insult. Their hive connection is still active, but unstable. If we reach the relay nexus, I might be able to reroute the signal. She tilted her head. You're saying you could control them? He hesitated. Briefly. But it would burn me out. I need to merge with the network. Kira blinked, realization hitting her. You mean plug your brain into 10,000 homicidal robots and hope you come out human? Reaper's answer was simple. If it saves Earth. The ship jolted suddenly, pulled out of its stealth drift by a tractor beam. Outside, a massive Imperial carrier loomed, its hull scarred but functional. Guess someone survived, Kira muttered. The ship's communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke, mechanical but distinct. Unit Reaper 01, return to directive. The hive awaits. Reaper's jaw clenched. They know I'm here. He stood, ignoring his injuries, and gripped the control lever. Brace. Before Kira could ask what he meant, he reversed the engines at full power, and then fired the rear thrusters. The sudden blast ruptured the tractor beam's anchor, throwing their ship into a violent spin. The maneuver worked, but alarms blared as the ship's stabilizers failed. Kira grabbed the console to steady herself. Next time, warn me before you break physics. Reaper ignored her and realigned their trajectory toward the coordinates of the Nexus relay. They arrived at the edge of a massive debris field orbiting a dying star. In the center floated a dark monolith pulsing with faint red light. The relay nexus. Kira stared at it, all mixing with dread. That thing looks like it eats souls. Reaper began prepping the neural interface, connecting cables from his spine into the ship's system. It transmits the hive's core commands. If I can intercept it, I can override the assassins. She bit her lip. And if you fail? He looked at her calmly. Then I become one of them again. The silence between them stretched, broken only by the soft hum of the dying engines. Kira finally said, You're not allowed to die before me. That's my rule. He gave the faintest hint of a smile. I'll keep it in mind. As they approached the Nexus, hundreds of assassin ships emerged from the darkness, moving in eerie synchrony. The air inside their ship grew tense, heavy with unspoken fear. Kira manned the weapons, firing bursts of plasma to clear a path while Reaper focused on syncing with the relay signal. Every hit they took shook the ship violently. Panels burst into sparks. You better make this quick, she shouted. Working on it, he replied, voice flat but strained. The neural connection linked. His eyes flickered between human blue and machine red as data surged through him. His mind reached across the void, touching the hive network. He saw countless minds, cold, silent, obedient. The Emperor's voice echoed faintly through the static. You cannot destroy what you are. Reaper gritted his teeth. Watch me. Inside the network, Reaper's consciousness was pulled through endless corridors of code, each one a reflection of the Empire's cruelty. He felt the weight of 10,000 wolves pressing against him, trying to consume him. But he pushed back, channeling something the hive couldn't understand, emotion. Memories flooded his system. Earth's oceans, laughter, Kira's voice calling him a drama addict. Pain, humor, humanity. The network faltered under the strain of individuality. Kira watched from the cockpit as assassin ships began to turn on each other, their formations breaking apart. It's working! She yelled. But Reaper's body convulsed, sparks shooting from his neural ports. Blood mixed with coolant ran down his neck. Come on! She whispered, gripping his arm. Don't you dare give up now. Through sheer will, Reaper forced control over the hive, his mind fracturing under the load. He rerouted their programming, changing a single directive: protect Earth. The assassins froze, their red lights dimming to blue. Across the battlefield, thousands of ships halted their attack trajectories. Kira exhaled in disbelief. You did it! But her relief vanished when she saw his face. His breathing was shallow, eyes blank. Reaper? She said softly. The monitors showed his neural activity collapsing. He had transferred nearly everything into the network. She disconnected him manually, electricity surging through her hands. His body slumped forward. She caught him, shaking him desperately. Don't you dare pull a noble sacrifice on me! Outside, the assassin fleets began realigning, forming a defensive barrier around Earth. The Imperial Communication Network broadcast one final message, transmitted from Reaper's signal itself. This world is under protection. Death has changed allegiance. Kira stared at the display, her throat tightening. He had done it. The Empire's greatest weapon had turned its army into Earth's shield. But the cost was unbearable. She looked at Reaper's motionless form, her voice breaking. You stubborn, stupid machine. She dragged him into the cryo chamber, hooking up emergency stabilizers. The ship's AI, patched together from Sarah's fragments, spoke quietly. Vital signs minimal. He is fading. Kira sat beside him, wiping oil and blood from his face. You saved us, she whispered. Now you rest. Earth was quiet for the first time in months. No alarms, no broadcasts about alien fleets or evacuation drills, just silence and sunlight. Cities began to hum again, people stepped outside with disbelief, and children pointed at the sky that no longer burned. The assassin fleets still floated in orbit, thousands of black ships gleaming like shards of night, but they didn't move. They had become silent sentinels, watching but not attacking, their deadly programming overwritten by one man's final act. The world called it the miracle of the Reaper. Governments scrambled to study the fleets, scientists called it impossible, and conspiracy theorists claimed Earth had made a deal with death itself. But Kira Tanaka didn't care about any of that. She sat alone in a recovery chamber aboard their damaged ship, staring at the cryopod where Reaper lay, his body still and pale under the cold blue light. Weeks had passed since the battle. She had repaired what she could of the ship, and rerouted its systems to keep him alive. The AI, rebuilt from fragments of Sarah's code, monitored him constantly. Neural activity remains unstable, it reported for the 100th time. He exists between sleep and shutdown. Kira rolled her eyes, exhaustion heavy in her voice. So, same as me after 2 cups of vodka. Still, her humor was hollow now. She sat beside the pod every night, talking to him even when he couldn't hear. She told him about Earth's recovery, about how people had turned the assassins into tourist attractions, how the Empire's territories were collapsing without their ruler. But mostly, she talked about ordinary things, the smell of Tokyo rain, the taste of ramen, the noise of life. She wanted him to remember what he'd fought for when he woke up. If he woke up. One evening, while she was running diagnostics, a transmission came through the long-range receiver. It wasn't from Earth. The signal was faint but distinct, originating from deep space, somewhere beyond the destroyed Imperial borders. Kira frowned and activated the feed. Static filled the cabin before a voice emerged, calm, male, unmistakably human. To any surviving units of the Imperial network, it said. The Emperor's death was a setback, not an end. The Omega Seed has awakened. The message repeated, then faded into silence. Kira's heart stopped for a moment. She turned to the AI. Replay that. The voice echoed again, and this time she noticed something chilling. The signal carried Reaper's encryption signature. That's impossible, she whispered. He's here. The AI processed the data. The origin point is verified. The signal was transmitted from within the galactic core. Kira looked at the cryopod, her chest tightening. Don't tell me you did something crazy even in a coma. But deep down, she knew what had happened. When Reaper had merged with the Hive network, A part of him must have remained inside, trapped in the digital consciousness that had once belonged to the Emperor. Maybe he wasn't entirely gone. Maybe he was still fighting. The thought was terrifying and comforting all at once. She stood up and activated the navigation system. "Plot a course," she said. The AI hesitated. "Destination?" "The signal's origin," she replied. "We're bringing him home." The engines groaned to life, the old ship trembling as it prepared for another impossible journey. The route led through the Outer Rim, past what remained of the Empire's abandoned colonies. The deeper they traveled, the stranger space became. Energy storms rippled through the void, fragments of old warships floated like ghosts, and entire planets lay cracked and silent. The AI reported faint power signatures, remnants of the Emperor's destroyed mind, still lingering in machine husks. Kira couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. One night, while running scans, she caught a flicker of light outside the viewport. A single assassin ship, following silently behind them. She tensed. "We've got company." But the ship didn't attack. Instead, it transmitted a message to her console. The text appeared in ancient Imperial code, translated by Sarah's system into 3 simple words. "Follow the path." She didn't understand how, but she knew who it was. Reaper. Somehow, his presence still existed within the network, guiding her. Trusting that instinct, she followed the assassin's ship through a nebula of violet light, where gravity twisted and time seemed to slow. Beyond it, a massive structure loomed, a dark sphere wrapped in golden veins of energy, pulsing like a living heart. "Omega seed detected," the AI said. Kira stared in awe. The stories hadn't exaggerated. The seed was beautiful and terrifying, radiating power beyond comprehension. She felt her ship shudder under its gravitational pull. The assassin vessel ahead of her descended toward the surface and vanished into a glowing rift. Without hesitation, she followed. Inside the sphere, everything changed. The walls weren't metal or rock but something alive, shifting and breathing, as if the seed itself was aware. Energy flowed through translucent veins, carrying fragments of light that whispered like voices. Kira walked through the corridors with her blaster drawn, her reflection multiplying endlessly across the living surface. At the center of the chamber stood a figure. For a moment, she thought it was Reaper, tall, armored, motionless. But when it turned, she saw the difference. Its eyes glowed gold, not red or blue, and its face was an echo of his but twisted, serene, and wrong. "You came," it said in a voice that was almost his. "I knew you would." Her chest tightened. "Reaper?" The being smiled faintly. "Part of me." It gestured to the walls. "When I connected to the hive, I found the seed waiting. It absorbed me, reshaped me. The Empire sought to use it as a weapon, but it is something else entirely. A reset. A chance to erase and rebuild." Kira's throat went dry. "You're saying it can recreate life?" He nodded. "Everything. Every planet, every species. A clean slate." She stepped closer, anger and grief fighting in her voice. "And you're planning to use it?" His golden eyes softened. "I don't want to. But it's waking on its own. If it activates uncontrolled, it will rewrite existence. Someone has to stop it." Kira swallowed hard. "So how do we stop a god seed?" He looked at her with the same calm determination she remembered. "By giving it a choice." The seed pulsed brighter as if listening. Reaper reached out his hand. "You have to sever my link. If I stay connected, it will merge with me completely. But doing so will erase me from both the network and your world." Kira shook her head. "No. There has to be another way." He stepped closer, gently touching her shoulder. "You once told me humans always improvise. So improvise one last time. Remember me for what I was, not what I became." Her vision blurred as she raised her hand to the console embedded in his chest. "You idiot," she whispered. "You better haunt me for this." He smiled, the faintest trace of warmth returning to his face. "Count on it." She pressed the command. The chamber erupted in light, the seed flaring like a newborn star. Energy rushed through her, lifting her off the ground. She saw flashes of Earth, of the Empire collapsing, of stars being reborn. When the light faded, the sphere was silent again. The golden figure was gone. Only the seed remained, now dark and dormant. Kira fell to her knees, trembling, tears mixing with dust. "Goodbye, partner," she whispered,